Welcome, everyone, to Real, Raw, and Honest. Today, we're going to continue talking about stress. We're going to talk about what some of the symptoms are and what you might be feeling yourself. And then, of course, at the end, I'm going to give you a couple of tools and so that you know how to begin to deal with it and to get rid of it in your life, how to better be prepared and how to better be able to overcome the negative stress in your life, how to manage it better. So, it's no surprise that in our world today, we just find ourselves in situations that's so fast paced and there's so much going on all the time that it's easy to get stressed because, we have a full schedule and then you add one or two more things on top of it. And the next thing you know, you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not sure exactly how to make everything fit into your day. It doesn't even include the things like your car breaking down or, you know, health issues or sickness or any of those kinds of things. So, the question I have for you as we look at this a little deeper today is how do you respond to your stress? How do you respond when you're stressed? How do you react? What is your first go to? Do you get testy? Do you get punchy? Do you get argumentative? Do you get short? Like what? Like is your temper shortened? Like what? How do you deal with that? Do you want to fight? Do you want to argue? What is it that you do when you're in a situation where you're feeling stressed? How do you respond? That's a fair question because that's one of the things that we want to get rid of because that's hard on relationships if that's how you manage. Maybe you procrastinate. Maybe you find yourself going, okay, so I'm just going to put that off today and I'll get to it tomorrow. But tomorrow you go, I'm just going to put it off again today. And then every day that you procrastinate getting at it, you're just adding more stress to yourself as you go forward, right? So maybe you're avoiding things, avoiding people, avoiding the person who's asked you to do a task, or you're in avoidance mode. Are you eating? Maybe you don't eat. Maybe you overeat. Maybe these are some of the things that you do when you're feeling stressed. Maybe you like to shop. Maybe that makes you feel better to go out and buy a bunch of new clothes or I knew a woman once who was feeling particularly stressed, and so she decided to go out and she bought a brand new truck, like an expensive truck, like a $60,000-$70,000 truck, and it didn't go well with her husband when she went home. I can tell you that, but she was trying to make herself feel better instead of dealing with the stressors. She bought a truck. I was a little flabbergasted at the time going, well, how did you think that was going to make it better? And she goes, well, he'll be mad for a while, but he'll go over it. I do this when I'm stressed. And I'm like, okay, maybe we need to take a look at that a little bit more and just kind of decide that, figure out a better way for you to deal with your stress rather than almost potentially destroying your relationship with your husband. So, maybe you busy yourself in other ways. Like I said last week, I said, maybe I would clean my house. It would be sparkling top to bottom. You could eat off of any floor, any corner. You could eat off the toilet seat if you wanted to. It was that clean. That's how I dealt with my stress. So, maybe you can't just even begin anything, right? So these are some of these things. Maybe you don't sleep. Maybe you sleep too much. Maybe you binge watch TV. Maybe you find yourself sitting and just staring off into space, just allowing random thoughts to randomly take up space in your brain. These are all ways that we handle stress. And, we can, so some of them are better than others. Sometimes you can get into addictions or drinking or whatever. And all of these are ways that people deal with their stress. These are some of the symptoms that we have when we have stress, not how we deal with it, but, how it affects us, right? So the thing is that, the way we handle stress is normally taught to us by our parents, right? So either they help us to learn how to deal with it or they teach us how to avoid it or how not to deal with it, if I can say that. So what's your history in stress management, stress tolerance? What is your stress tolerance level? And how many of these things that I've just talked about, how many of those things apply to you? How many of those things do? You might do more than one, you might do 5 or 6. And so it's taking a look at that and going, how am I feeling and how am I responding to that? So then let's take a look at what causes your stress. What are your current stressors, right? What causes your stress? What might cause stress for me might not cause stress for you at all. Relationally, some people have a lot of stressors around relationships. A lot of people have a lot of stress around coming to someone and bringing forth something that needs to be discussed. That's not a stressor for me. I'll just go sit down and have the conversation. I can do it in such a way that it's kind and it's loving, but I don't find any real stress around that situation. Now, there are many other things that cause me stress. Sometimes the lack of finances, or feeling like money is getting low, or having, the expense of those kinds of things cause me stress. Finding out that somebody is angry with me, but they won't come and talk to me. Instead, they talk to a lot of other people. That can cause me some stress. So, what are your stressors? What are the things that cause you to become stressed? Is it work related? I mean, there are whole careers that are based on stress. Doctors, ER doctors for sure, those kinds of things, right? Firefighters, policemen, a lot of stress in some of these jobs, right? So what causes you stress? And at the moment, what are your current stressors? So the thing about stress is it can leave you with a feeling of a lack of power in a situation, either at work or at home. And this can lead you to feel overwhelmed. So you're looking at a situation and you're going, oh my gosh, I have a lack of power. I feel powerless, or I feel somewhat powerless, or I don't really know what to do. So there's this lack of inability to know what to do with the situation that causes you to feel stress. So another thing that can cause stress is being reminded of past events that you'd rather forget. Say maybe you're going through a divorce and you don't want to think about that, but you have to because you're going to court, and you have to have conversations around these things with your lawyer, and maybe even in the courtroom. Maybe you're starting to have some flashbacks about some past trauma that happened in your life. Those things can be traumatizing as well. And conversations maybe that you've had in the past that you wish you could undo and do over again, and that might be causing you some stress because you know that maybe the other person's upset. All of these things can cause stress in our life. So when we have stress, we feel vulnerable, we can feel overwhelmed, we can feel incapable, we can feel powerless, we can feel like we don't have knowledge to know how to handle the things that are going on. So these are all things that make the stress come out, because if we had the tools, we'd be able to actually move forward in it and go, yeah, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know how to handle this. I know how to get from A to Z. I know how to step through. And so it's a matter of working it through. But when you feel vulnerable, when you feel incapable, when you feel like you don't have the knowledge, or you're feeling overwhelmed, all of those things cause more stress. So like I said last week, this can include moving, can include promotions, can include demotions, can it include, a decrease in salary. It can be divorce. It can be an affair. It can be an illness. There's many other things that it can cause in your life. Any kind of sudden shift or change can cause stress in your life, and that because it changes the routine that you're used to. And so all of those things, now everything in your world needs to be shifted. So another question I have for you is, are you feeling threatened by anything in your world? Are you feeling that there's anything that you might feel as a potential threat? Are you feeling maybe scapegoated, like that somebody has trying to throw you under the bus, right, in order to clear their name? Maybe you've had a physical attack or a verbal attack from somebody. Maybe you live in an unsafe environment and you're a husband or a wife that, has to deal with the potential of verbal violence or something like that. And these are all things that can cause problems and can cause stress, because you're never sure when the other shoe is going to drop. You're never sure how things are going to work out. So again, what's another thing? Death of a loved one, like loss of a job or career, conflict in relationships with family or friends, or people that matter in your world. So these are all things, right? Like, just to take a look at that, how do you deal with it, and what could be your stressor? Are you going through any of those things? And if not, what is your stressor? What is causing you stress? It's important to be able to look at that and try to pinpoint it so that it's not bleeding into every other area of your life. So I think we talked about this a little bit last week as well. But how and where did you learn how to deal with your stress, right? Where? So for me, like I said last week, is that my parents, I learned it from my parents. My dad would come in when he was having a particularly bad day or a stressful day, and he'd crack open the rye bottle and he would drink, or he would have beer. My mom would sit at the table like this, and she would just sit there and she would worry. She would just think probably about every scenario, but you could see the worry, you could see the concern, you could see this intenseness in her eyes, and so she would just sit in it. She would just sit in it and stew in it, and so that is how I learned how to deal with it. Well, I didn't like how I thought in my mind at the time when I was a kid. I thought, well, I don't want to do the paralyzed thing. I need to be able to do something. So I didn't do what my mom did, but I chose to do what my father did. And if Jesus wouldn't have come up in my life, if he wouldn't have saved me, I probably would have ended up to be an alcoholic, or an abuser of something, right? Some kind of an addict. And so the truth is that's probably how you learned how to deal with your stress too. Now, my parents didn't deal with stress properly. They didn't deal with it well. They just allowed these things to carry them away in the process of what they were going through. And my dad avoided it by drinking and getting drunk, and my mom would think it to death and cause worry and stress to take over her emotional state. And either way, in both situations, we, the kids, often paid the price for that because mom would, she was very passive aggressive, right? And so, you would find yourself in a situation where mom was angry, but you didn't know about what. And it probably didn't have anything to do with us at all. But my dad was drinking. And so you have the avoidance and no conversation to be had. And so I don't know what your situation is, but take a look at it and go, did my parents sit down with me and have a conversation about how to walk through some of the stuff that I was going through? If the answer is yes, that's great. You probably don't need to listen to this. But if the answer is no, then you can probably learn a few things. Okay, so thing is, as children, what happens is we often get overwhelmed by our struggles, right? We don't know what to do because we haven't learned the coping strategies in order to know what to do with them. And so overwhelm for a child can be anything from your leaving on a vacation, or you're going to grandma's house for the weekend and you forgot your favorite blanket, or you forgot your stuffy, or you didn't bring your homework, or whatever it is, depending on the age that you are. And that's all of a sudden a huge overwhelming moment in your life. Going to school, finding out that you forgot your homework at home, huge stress for a child, right? But if the parent doesn't sit with you and talk with you about that and help you work it through, now you end up in a situation where you're frozen because you don't know what to do. Um, I remember when my kids were little that, all kids forget to do their homework. They come home, put their backpack down, have a snack, and unwind for a bit, and then they forget to do their homework. And both of them at some point came down the stairs and said, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to do my homework and I need to, it's due tomorrow." And I remember having the conversation with both of them and I go, okay, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever. How are you going to manage this? What are we going to do so that you can get this done? You've got two choices, really. That's all your only choices you've got. You can do it now when you're tired, or you can get up earlier in the morning and you can do it then. What do you choose? And, they made the choice and then they followed through on that choice. And so those were just tools that I handed to them so that they knew that they didn't have to be powerless in this situation. But that didn't happen for many of us when we were growing up. And so that's just a little thing, right? Even bullying or whatever it is that you're going through. So the thing is that parents are supposed to help their children learn some of these tools. They're supposed to help them to become prepared to be an adult in an adult world so that they don't get overwhelmed at some of these things, so that they know they've got tools that they can think things through and not become paralyzed in the face of opposition or stress or things that are going on in their world. So you learn this coping strategies from your parents. You don't learn them from a teacher. You learn them from your family. And it's the parents that are supposed to give you the bigger picture. If you don't do your homework, what's going to happen? in this situation as a child? What's going to happen if you don't go to grandma's and you didn't bring your favorite stuffy? What's the worst that can happen? Okay, so here's what can happen. If you live around the corner, I can bring it to you. If grandma lives 3 hours away, well, you're going to have to, do without it. Or, maybe in grandma's goodness of her heart, she might go get you another one. Whatever your plan is, however you address that, and working it through, just giving the child some kind of strategy to know how to deal with the situation they're in. And so, like I said, I didn't learn that, and many of you didn't learn that. And so it's trying to figure out where are we and where do we go from here? And so I did talk last week about when parents are there for their kids and they do give them these strategies, the kids grow up and they're better able to handle the environment that they're put in and the situations that they're going through. So me, however, and many of you like me didn't have those things. So we had to learn some of these things on our own. And either we learned them or we just coped by doing what we had seen shown to us by our parents, or we learned our own coping mechanisms, right? When I was a kid, I'd lose myself in books a lot because it was just a form of escape from my environment that enabled me to be able to just put everything else out of my mind for a while. I didn't have to think about it. So it's a form of avoidance, not procrastination, but avoidance for sure. But I want to say this. When you grow up in an environment where you're not taught how to deal with stress, and if you live in an environment that is stressful, you will not recognize stress in the low levels. So you might recognize stress and go, oh, I think I feel stressed. But the reality is that if you grow up in that environment, like say what I did, is like you are so used to living in this level of stress that you don't even realize that you have stress until you're way up here at the top end. I talked about that a little bit last week. And so it's like, okay, so let's determine what some of the stress symptoms are so that you can determine where you're at. And so I want you to listen to these, and I want you to go, how many of these do I have? And if you have a few of them, but you don't have a lot of them, I want you to stop and consider, well, where am I feeling stressed? Where is the stress coming from? What am I feeling, and why am I feeling this way? So early signs of stress will include some of these things. Like I said, you're probably not going to have all of them. If you have all of them, you're probably at a level 10, and you probably need to get some help on that. But you might have 1 or 2 or 5 of these. And so just determine how many you have and where your level of stress is coming from. So early signs of stress include trouble sleeping. So now this is different than, say, a hormonal change where you're not able to sleep because things have shifted in your world. Having a baby can cause that. Menopause can cause that. Perimenopause can cause that. So there's other areas, right, that can be attributed to this. But if you're going to bed and not being able to go to sleep because you can't shut your mind off, well, then you have trouble sleeping. And if you're running through those conversations or the thing that's causing you stress and you need money or whatever, and those are the things that are going through your mind, those events, then you have stress. So trouble sleeping, number 1. Number 2, being tired. Are you feeling tired for no reason? You're going to bed, you're able to sleep, you're getting up, but you're just exhausted all the time. And you just want to sleep all the time. You just want to crawl into bed and you just want to pretend that the world is just going on without you and just to sleep. Avoid by sleeping, right? So trouble sleeping. Are you awake or are you tired and wanting to sleep all the time? You can have tense muscles. We talked about this last week as well. Tight muscles, tense muscles, including jaw pain and grinding of the teeth. These are all early signs of stress, right? That you find yourself sitting and your teeth are just clenched together. It can be anger, but it can also be stress. So where are you feeling stress? Are you having headaches quite a bit? Are you finding that daily you have this nagging headache? You're not getting a cold. There's nothing like that coming on. What is it that you're feeling, but you have this headache, either a severe headache or a migraine, or you have just this low level pain in your head all of the time? Stress. Maybe you have brain fog. Maybe you're just unable to stop and think through things, and you find that it's difficult to really push forward. Now I'm talking practically here, right? So, and maybe you're forgetful, right? Like, we always go, I went into the kitchen and forgot what I was doing in there. Well, that can happen for a few reasons. You've got a lot of things on your mind, or stress, or there can be other reasons for it. But taking a look at these things and going, what is it that I'm feeling and why am I feeling it? So, early signs of stress, look at the list that I've given you and determine how many of those things you're feeling in yourself right now. What are you feeling? How are you? Do you have stress? How many of them did you tick off? Are you at a level 10? Do you need to start being able to pull apart some of those things? Because remember, when you grow up in a very unhealthy home and a trauma home, you aren't going to recognize the signs of stress when you're down here in the low levels. You're only going to recognize it when you're up here. And so what we want to do is we want to begin to realize that we've got stress down here so that we can deal with it down here, so that doesn't try to take us out when we're up here. So stress, right? We've all had it. We all go there. Maybe you're there now. So let's take a look at a few tools right now that will help you to walk through this, okay? Help you to be able to navigate your stress, to deal with it. So the first thing is to become aware of what is happening in you. And I talk about this a lot. And this is one of the things, regardless of what you're feeling, be aware of what is happening inside of you. We are so busy putting on this face when we're at work. And yes, I've been a manager too. And I've had to say to people, you know what? I will listen to what's going on in your home. But when you come to work, you need to leave that outside the door. You're more than welcome to pick it up when you go home. But when you are here, you have a job to do. You cannot be sitting in that situation in the 8 hours that you are here. You have to separate yourself from all of that and do your job while you're here. And so if you can't do that, do you need stress leave? What are we looking at here? And so, yes, we all have to do that. If you're a professional in any kind of environment, you're going to have to leave some of that stuff and then pick it up. But what we do is we learn to just do that all the time, right? And so it's looking at it and going, what is happening inside of me? What did I feel when that person said that to me? How am I feeling now? Where is the stress? How am I feeling it? Becoming aware of your physical body. I'm going to go through some of the things, how stress and trauma affects your physical body. I'm going to go through some of the lists of that in the coming weeks. So be watchful for that, because that's something that I'm going to be bringing up. So the second thing that we want to do, and I want to say this, if you're finding this helpful at all, I want you to like, I want you to share, I want you to subscribe, because those things, liking, commenting, sharing, all of those things make a big difference. And there's other people who are going to need to hear this message. And so be sure that you share, be sure that you like, be sure that you comment and subscribe, and give it to anybody else who you feel would be able to benefit from it. So the second thing is, this helps you, doing this, becoming aware of what's happening inside of you, actually helps you learn to detect your stress levels before they're a level 10. So if you can go, okay, so I have a mild headache, and I've had a mild headache for about a week, and I'm not catching a cold. Do I have stress? And looking at that and going, if I have stress, where could this stress be coming from? And I know that for some of you, you're thinking, well, wouldn't I know? Well, no, because like I said, if you grew up in that trauma home, you're not going to recognize it because that was your world. You lived in this fishbowl of stress. You lived in this fishbowl of trauma. So you don't recognize that as being abnormal. And so now as an adult, you're not going to recognize it until you're here. So it's looking at it going, what's going on inside of me, so that you can begin to problem solve and get help if you need to. So what do I mean when I say get help? You might need to go see a therapist. That's fine. You might need to ask for help. You might need to ask somebody to come and mow your lawn, or to, help you babysit the kids, or, just to be able to help you in certain areas so that you have time to do something for yourself. Right? So those are just some of the areas. This doesn't mean you need to go for counseling or therapy, but you might need to. And there's no shame around that at all. So the third thing is to acknowledge that stress at level 2 or level 3 is still stress. It's still stress, and it's still affecting your physical body. So if we can learn to deal with that level 2 stress, it won't become a level 10 stress. So if we can begin to problem solve and troubleshoot down here, then we're not going to have to deal with this, what feels like a mountain here. So recognizing low-level stress is still stress. It's still affecting you. Number 4 is to determine, using the symptoms given today that I told you about today, that you are stressed. So go through the list. Listen, I'll put it in the comments. Are you stressed? What's causing you stress? Determine how many of those things do you have. Number 5, acknowledge it. I'm stressed. Don't be ashamed to say that if you're at a level 2 or a level 3 stress, that you're stressed. It's no more embarrassing than saying that you have a level 10 stress. It might feel differently in your body, but like I said, stress is stress. And so being able to acknowledge, yeah, I have some stress in my life for sure. Yeah. And then determine, like I said, what's causing it. Where's your stress coming from? Is there friction with somebody at work, or are you afraid that they might scapegoat you and you might lose your job? Like, where's the stress coming from? And then number 6, ask God to give you the tools to help you cope and to release the stress. God has all the answers to these things, but we don't. And so we kind of muddle our way through things and try to figure it out, and we struggle through things when we don't have to. Now, I'm not saying that there's some magic answer in just, but God does have the answers, but sometimes we need people too, right? So ask God to help to give you tools outside of what we've talked about here so that you can acknowledge your stress and release it, and that He'll give you some tools to help to cope with that. Number 7, determine what needs you have that aren't being met. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Do you need somebody to drive you to the hospital to see your sick husband? Do you need somebody to drive you to your doctor's appointment because you have some tests that are coming up? Do you need a friend to come over and just help you if you're not well, to do some of the chores around the house? What do you need? Do you need somebody to sit down with you and help you write down the list so that you can help to work through your stress, and so that you can learn to put things in order of what's the most priority, what's the least priority, and work through that thing? What are your deadlines? How can you break it up? Do you need somebody to help you with that process? And so determine what needs you have. Do you feel abandoned? Do you feel rejected? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, what are the needs that you have, and how can they be met? So what do you need? It's trying to figure that out. Do you need help? This is number 8. Do you need help? Do you need physical help? Do you just need guidelines? Do you need therapy? What do you need? And then number 9, as you work through these things, and like I said, this is much easier to do when you're down here at level 2 than it is when you're up here and you're at level 10 and you're super stressed and it's hard to even sit still because you've got all of these things that need to be done. So number 9 is to list some solutions to help navigate your current situation. So that could be, what are the solutions? And I'll take this myself as an example. When my first husband was in the hospital with leukemia, and I was driving to the hospital every day, what were some solutions that I could look to, because I was working my full 8 hour shift, then going to the hospital, coming home. I needed to get laundry done. I needed to do cooking. I needed to do grocery shopping. I needed to do these things. He was in the hospital initially for 66 days. So that's 2 months, give a little, plus a little bit. And so how do I get all of this accomplished? What do I need done? Okay, so coming to some kind of a conclusion on that, I can not go in 1 day a week. I can do my laundry. I can do those things. I can send my kids. My kids can go. They can sit with him. They can be with him and visit with him, and I could do all of that. And so that is one thing that I did. And then, so just what can you do to help alleviate some of the stress in a practical way? But then there's also self-care. How do I take care of myself in that situation? And so there was days that I would work, when I worked until later on in the day. I would just say, you know what, I'm not coming in today. I think, and I'm just gonna take myself for supper and then go home and have a bath and read a book. And that's what I was going to do. And so what do you need as well? Help to alleviate the stress. And then number 10, pray, 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 and release the stress to God, because like I said, he has all the answers. He has the ability to assist you, to help you. But we deal with stress, we live with stress rather, because we feel ashamed of it. Why should I be stressed when I have God on my side? Why should I have stress when the God who is the God of all things and created all things dwells inside of me? I should not have stress. So we carry this shame around in us, saying that we're faulty somehow because we are stressed. And that's just not the case. So it's looking at it and going, praying about it and just going, Lord, here I am. I'm giving you my stress. I don't need it. I don't want it. Help me walk through this with peace and calm, and help me make it through it. So that's it for this second session on stress, and be encouraged. God is with you. He knows what you're going through. He knows the struggles that you're having. He knows how to help you through it. And if you take some of these tools that I've given you, you're going to come out and you're going to be all right with it. So God bless you all. We'll see you next week.